So what do you say we spend a little time in the garden today? All right. So on a previous video, I think it was when we were harvesting our sweet potatoes, and I was showing my storage rack where I keep all my winter squash sweet potatoes. Someone noticed my wheel hoe arsenal there beside my storage rack and asked to do a video showing all the different wheel hoe setups I have. And so I thought this would be a fun opportunity to do, just a neat little video showing you all the different wheel hoes I use and all the different setups I kind of just keep configured permanently so I can just grab one and go. So I've got all my wheel hoes here set up on a table so I can show you the setups for each one. But before we do this, just keep in mind that this is not necessarily realistic for every garden or homestead. The reason I have so many is for pretty much this channel doing these videos. When I'm out here shooting these videos, I don't want to have to take the time to change attachments or change setups. So I have all these different setups, 6 different wheel hoes here, so I can just grab one and go. And it makes things a lot quicker when I'm out here shooting these videos, especially on those hot days when it's just suffocating out here and you want to try to get things done as quick as possible. So is having 6 wheel hoes realistic? Well, maybe if you got a small scale market farm, but not for the average, everyday homesteader. Now what we do find is a lot of people, after they get one wheel hoe, they'll find 1 or 2 setups that they would really like to just dedicate to, and they'll purchase another one. And a lot of people have 2 wheel hoes, use one for a specific purpose, use another for a specific purpose, so they don't have to change out attachments all the time. Now these attachments do not take long at all to change. A 9/16 wrench, you can usually switch them out in 5 minutes or so, but it is nice just to have a setup you use all the time so you can just grab it and go. So for the 6 wheel hoes I have here, I have 2 single wheel hoes, 1 high arch wheel hoe, and 3 double wheel hoes. Now some of these attachments can be used on all 3 of our models, the single, the double, or the high arch. But some of the attachments I use, like the drip tape layer, can only be used on the double wheel hoe. So the reason I have certain attachments on a single or double or a high arch has to do with just how I like to use them, and I'll tell you more about that as we look at each one. Now keep in mind, as I show you these, I didn't polish them up or anything for this video. They're dirty because we use them all the time, and this is just how they look when we grab them and go. Sometimes if this dirt gets too caked up on here, I'll take a pair of channel locks or something other and kind of knock the dirt off. But this is kind of how they look here. So this first setup here is probably the simplest one. This is what you get if you just order a single wheel hoe. We've got a single wheel here, and we've got our 3 cultivator teeth right here. I like to put that middle tooth there in the front. Seems like it makes the material or the soil pass through those teeth a little bit better. And this is one of my main go-to weeding or cultivating setups. This is the one I like to use if we get a pretty hard rain, and then right before that soil crust over, as soon as I can get out there in the garden, I like to go in there with this guy, kind of break up that soil so it doesn't crust over, keep everything nice and friable, and keep any new weeds from germinating. I like this setup. I like to use the teeth on the single wheel hoe just because it gives me a little more maneuverability. A lot of times I might be using this close to a row or a trellis and kind of tilting it to the side either way, depending on how close I'm getting to a row of plants. And I just have a little more maneuverability here with the single than I would with the double. So that's why I like the 3 teeth on the double. And I probably use this at least once a week on all my plots. Just a good preventative measure for weeding. And then for wheel hoe number 2 here, we've got another single wheel hoe. This is I got 1 and 2 single wheel hoes. So this is the other one. And on this one I have our 12-inch oscillating hoe blade or attachment. This thing kind of rocks back and forth so you can cut in both directions. It's sharp on both sides. We have this in a 6-inch and an 8-inch version. I like the 12-inch just because I can cover more ground with it. I like this on the single wheel hoe for the same reason I like the teeth on the single wheel hoe. It gives me a little more maneuverability working around plants and in between rows there. And this is the one I alternate with the cultivator teeth. So I'll use the cultivator teeth one time for kind of weed and cultivating, then I'll use this guy another time. I like to use this one when the soil is dry. I don't like to use it when it's a little bit wet, because sometimes it kind of just pulls up the soil in sheets as opposed to giving me a nice little cultivation there. But this is the one we're going to use if we let our weeds get out of control and we end up with some pretty thick weeds out there. We're going to use this guy to come in, cut those weeds and kind of tear that ground up so those weeds don't come back. So this one I use about as frequent as I do with the cultivator teeth. Great for general cultivation, but also good for getting those big weeds if you do slip up and let your weed pressure get behind you a little bit. And now on to some of our double wheel hoes. And we got one high arch wheel hoe to talk about. So I've got a double wheel hoe here, and I've got a lot of bricks holding this down because this particular setup doesn't stand up on its own well at all. But we got our plow blades here. We got our left and our right plow blade, and we've got them in the furrowing position. So they come to a point right here like that and make a little trench in the soil. And this is a good setup to just always have, you know, put together, because we're using this all the time, especially when we're laying drip tape. We're always going to make a furrow, and then we'll come in and put that drip tape down in that furrow and bury it. If we're planting potatoes, we're going to use this guy. Also, if we're reusing our drip tape, we're going to use it to make a furrow. So anytime we're making a planting furrow, we're going to be using this guy. And since I put almost everything on drip, this setup here gets used a lot. That's why we have it, you know, permanently set up here, so we can just grab it, make a furrow, and go. And on to numero 40 here. We've got our high arch wheel hoe. This is the only high arch I have in my arsenal. And here we have the plow blades just like we have it on that double wheel hoe I showed you just a second ago. But here we have them in the heeling position. And this is, the high arch wheel hoe can do a lot of things. But there's one thing that it just does phenomenal, is being able to heel plants. Because you got this tall clearance right here, this nice 15-inch clearance. You can change the distance between those plows via here, or the distance between these toolbars or wheels. Lots of different options here as far as how wide of a heel you want to throw. You know, if we're doing potatoes, we put these things out wide. If we're doing corn, we'll put them in a little closer and do a little bit of a tighter heel. So I use this for heeling everything, corn, potatoes, anything I want to throw soil to and stabilize. I'm also using this a lot when we reuse drip tape. So the drip tape layer, when we're putting down drip tape for the first time, it covers it for us. But when we're reusing it, we put it down and we use this guy right here to come over the top of it and bury it. So, like I said, the high arch can do a lot of things, but my favorite thing to use it for is heeling. I think it works awesome for that. And that's why we have our heeling set up on a high arch as opposed to a double wheel hoe. We could put this on a double wheel hoe. We just wouldn't have as tall a clearance. Our clearance would be about right here as opposed to way up here. So this is our lone high arch, and this is pretty much all I use it for, even though it could be used for a lot of other things. And on wheel hoe number 5 here, we have our drip tape layer attachment installed. Now this is probably the most complex of all of our wheel hoe attachments, and the one that takes the longest to set up. You're looking at probably 10 minutes or so on this versus less than 5 on hooking those others up. So that's why I think it's good to just have this permanently set up. I don't ever take it off this wheel hoe. That's all this wheel hoe here has ever done, is lay drip tape. It's never done anything else. Our drip tape roll here is empty. I need to put a new roll on there. You can kind of see how that works. You've got a bracket here that holds the drip tape roll up front of the wheel there. You've got a little sleeve that feeds it down to this roller wheel here. It applies the drip tape along that trench that you create, and these plow blades here cover up that drip tape nice and tidy there. So if you're doing a lot of laying drip tape, it's not a bad idea at all to have a dedicated unit just for this, because like I said, this one does take a little longer to switch in and out. But a lot of people will make their trenches, make all their furrows first, and then switch it over to this and then lay all their drip tape. You do it however you like. I just like having a dedicated setup for it here. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but this setup only works on the double wheel hoe. So that's why we have it on here. Can't use this on the high arch or the single wheel hoe because the way or where this drip tape roll sits right here. And then the last one we have right here, this double wheel hoe right here, is one that I'm a little more flexible with. All those others stay in those configurations all the time. They never get changed. This one here is the one where I do swap out attachments here and there. In fact, I usually have our sweeps set up on here as just another go-to weeding attachment and cultivating attachment. However, if you've been watching my videos about our no-till garden plot, you know that this is how, or what we use to put our transplants in. So we use this right here, which is our Dibble wheel attachment. And we use these to kind of mark the locations of where we're going to put our transplants in the ground. Makes a nice little hole or dibble in the soil, and you can stick your transplant plug right in it. Don't have to do a whole lot of digging. This thing, if your soil's nice and firm, digs the perfect size hole for you. Now we've just got one Dibble wheel on here right now, and we've got the spacing for every other hole. We could put another set of dibbles on here, or one between each of these existing ones if we wanted to make holes every 4 inches or so. We could also put 2 more Dibble wheels on here if we wanted to mark 3 rows at a time, or we could put 2 to do 2 rows at a time, however you want to. Lots of different options here. So the reason I have this set up is just because of that no-till plot, and this is what we had to use to kind of mark our transplanting holes. Like I said, usually the sweeps are on here, and this setup here is really easy to take on and off right here in the front. And I usually get my dibbles all set up like I want them, and then attach this bracket to the wheel hoe. I don't know how much longer I'll leave this on there. We might need it again in that no-till plot soon. We'll just have to see. I do like having the sweeps on here as a good grab and go, so I might take this off pretty soon, put my sweeps back on here, because I'll use those a lot more frequently than I'll use this right here just for planting in that no-till plot. Alright, so that's my wheel hoe arsenal, and how I have everything set up there is mainly a function of just the way we garden, the way we grow things around here. And depending on how you garden, how much garden you have, how you grow things, if you're using drip tape or not, your setups could be completely different. A lot of people just have one small plot, one wheel hoe is plenty enough. If you have a lot of plots like I have, you may need a few just to save you on some time down the road. So if you've got a wheel hoe, or 2 or 3, let me know in the comments below what your favorite setups are. Do you have some setups you just leave there all the time? Or maybe you're always kind of switching out between 2 or 3 setups. Tell me how you like to keep your wheel hoe set up so you can keep those gardens nice and clean. And if you don't have a wheel hoe, you probably need to head on over to hosstools.com and grab you one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give me a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and ring that bell so you get notified every time we come out with a new video. And if you want to see some of these wheel hoes in action, check out these other 2 videos right here. I think you'll really enjoy those as well. We'll see you next time.